Hi, my name is Karen and welcome to today's Makerspace video. The project for today I've called geometric embroidery, and I hope you didn't think it was a strange or really vague name when you first heard about it. I did struggle a little bit to find a suitable name for today's activity because there's not really a commonly used name to describe what it is. And when I said geometric embroidery, I mean something that looks a bit like this. So I was trying to find a name that gives some indication that it's got something to do with maths. You may remember seeing something like this from your maths class from your school days, or you may even remember seeing something like this as a sort of optical illusion, because what we've done here is to use a number of straight lines to give the effect of having drawn a curved line. And when I've thought about it a little bit more, I realized that I could probably more accurately describe it as Cartesian embroidery, if you want to be a bit nerdy and precise, because the Cartesian would refer to the fact that we're using a set of XY horizontal vertical axes to draw some lines to make our pattern. And I do really enjoy getting inspiration from beautiful things that have both an element of art and of science to it. So I hope that you enjoy today's activity too, because it does have that mathematical aspect to it, as well as being really visually pleasing. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to plan my design out on paper, and then I'm going to transfer it to a cardstock. I'm going to make it into a greeting card. But this is something that's really open-ended. You can apply this as embroidery to all sorts of substrates. So I'm going to use card, but you can certainly use it on fabric, either things like linen for basic embroidery, or Aida cloth, cross-stitch type fabric. You can use it on even things like wood and metal if you have the tools to make holes in those substrates. You can even just do it as a line drawing. That in itself will be quite beautiful, that you can then frame or use it for collage or other of your art projects. Okay, here's what you'll need to do this project. For the planning stages, you'll need some paper, and I've got a selection of different papers here. If you happen to have some grid paper or graph paper, which already has squares on it, then that would be great. You can really take advantage of that. But don't worry, you can also use blank paper, or else you can actually find lots of printable templates online. If you do a web search on printable graph paper or printable grid template, you'll come across lots of free resources. So grids that you can print off to use as a blank page that you can do your design on. So you need some paper, you'll need some pens. I'm using a couple of different colors because I'm planning a multicolored design, but even just a single pen or pencil will do. You'll need a ruler. And when you're actually doing your design as embroidery, you'll need a substrate. So as I said, I'm going to use cardstock. So this is about the thickness of a standard greeting card. I bought this as part of a DIY blank cards kit. It comes with matching envelopes. You can usually find these in craft supplies or stationery stores, or even stores like Kmart. They might come in a pack of 5 with matching envelopes, something like that. So this card is about an A6, so that's about A5 in size. You'll need some thread. I'm going for a more retro look with really fine lines, so I've decided to use standard sewing thread. You can use other options. For example, you can use embroidery cotton, you can use embroidery wool, you can even use knitting wool. My personal preference is for really clean, sharp lines, so I'm going to use a finer thread like sewing cotton. But different threads will give you a different textures and a different look, so it's worth playing around to get the effect you like. You might even want to use really thin wire or string or even leather thong if that's the look you want to achieve. And you will need some needles. The size of the needle will depend on the type of thread you're using. And you'll need some scissors. Here's how to start. I'm going to do an 8 by 8 grid pattern, and this grid paper, each square has 1 centimeter side, so I'm going to start by drawing a vertical line along 8 squares, and then a horizontal line for 8 squares to make that L shape. I'm going to actually number these as well, just to make it really clear and to help us all keep track of which lines to join up. So I've written 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on down the vertical, and then 1, 2, 8 across as well. Don't worry if it looks different from what you remember from maths class, but this is really important. It's what we're going to do is join the 1 to the 1, 2 to the 2, and so on. So you know you're doing the right thing when you start to draw the lines and your lines actually cross over each other. So the vertical and the horizontal are part of the design as well. You can imagine them to be 0 and 0. Okay, that's one unit done. So this sort of L-shaped unit is your basic unit, and you can repeat them and rotate them, for example, to get different shapes. So what I want to do on my card, like the one I had shown you before, I'm going to repeat my design across the other 2 edges of an imaginary square to give me a sort of a leaf outline. Now that's actually a 10 by 10 design. It's a bit bigger. This one's an 8 by 8 and I need it to make it smaller because my card is too small to work with a 10 by 10. So now that I've got the design, I need to copy it across to my card. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open it out. I'm going to pop it underneath my design, and I'm going to kind of trace it. What I forgot to say before is you need something sharp to make some holes. Now, it is possible to trace the design using pencil directly onto your card or fabric, but I think it's a bit hard to rub out afterwards. So what I'm going to do instead is use a drawing pin to sort of poke some small holes where the needle will eventually need to go. And if you need a mat or some sort of protection for your table, don't forget that. I'm just going to very lightly use my drawing pin to make some holes, just enough to mark the card, and that will help me work out where the needle needs to go. Okay, I'm ready to start embroidering. So I have my sewing thread. I'm using a double strand of normal sewing cotton. Through my needles, a normal sewing needle with a knot at the end. And I've got my pattern just as a reference, and I need to find the first hole, starting from the back. And through the holes that I had marked out before. You might need to just move the threads around a little bit while you're doing this so that you can see the holes clearly. Some of those are a little bit faint, so it's a little bit hard to see, but I'll get there. So, last couple of lines. And that's one side done. And for the top side, I'm going to use a slightly different shade. I'm going for a tone-on-tone effect. Okay, so this is what it looks like when I've done both sides. I've got the darker blue original unit and the diagonal unit in a paler blue. I'm pretty happy with that. So that's one idea of what you can do. And before we finish, just want to show you these images for more inspiration. So this was from a blog called Mum in the Madhouse, and it was a blog post about the intersection of maths and art. And as you can see, the top image is like 4 of those L-shaped units joined together into a 4-pointed star. And once you're more confident with this design, you can start to vary it too. So this one has 8 units, repeating units, and these are not at right angles. They're at a 45-degree angle. But the idea is the same. You still join 1 to 1, 2 to 2, and so on. But this gives you a more complex design again. So that's a few more ways of what you can do with this type of art and embroidery. And thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this.